I'm Rob Downey, a family practice MD and Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. I'm coming to you from Seaworthy Functional Medicine in Homer, Alaska. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. How can we understand the root cause and deeper dimensions of pain so that we can be transformed and get past the inflection point onto the other side, particularly chronic pain, which tortures and puzzles so many people? Today, we could not be more fortunate than to be joined by Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, an engineer in her first career who carried that rigor and analytics over into being a multi-certified thought leader and certified uh, functional medicine coach, a yoga instructor. So Jane, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Dr. Rob. I love any opportunity to talk about my experience and really to share hope with people. So thank you so much for having me here.
Oh gosh, it's a privilege, huge privilege. I shared as we were getting ready for today's session that anybody I've had the good fortune to speak with a couple of times at summits or podcasts, then I think I'm better able to support their message and create a sort of a space or a container for sharing their wisdom. So I'm always excited when I get to do that. And today we're going to talk about where things are at now with how you help people with pain. And it's super, super singular and interesting. I think that you've got both this very rigorous engineering, analytical part of who you are and how you relate with the world that you bring to this, but also ancient spiritual traditions and breathing and neuroplasticity. So let's have our goal be to give folks a tour of that today. Please share, if you would, sort of what you would describe as the leading edge of the wave of your understanding now that you've been doing this a while as we get into the end of 2024. And where should we start? What should folks know that they don't know about the mechanisms of pain and even how you came into this aha type relationship with it that you have? You had to transform your own rheumatoid arthritis pain. That was your sort of, if this were the Marvel Comics universe, that would be your genesis story, right? Your origin
Right.
story.
Yes. And I see it as a gift now, a super
Uh-huh.
gift, because what a lot of people don't realize and what I didn't realize right in the beginning is that uh and this may sound a little woo woo kind of thing, but it's not. But our body is a process. It's constantly responding to the information that's being received by our subconscious mind, and the nervous system that interprets that and creates the body based on that. And so people kind of think of their body more as like static, but it's really not static. It's changing all the time, right? Cells are turning over. And so the cells turn over, getting a message from the environment that the cells are kind of, marinating in. And so that environment is actually within our control in so many ways. And I know that that's sort of foundational to functional medicine. But what's really been interesting in terms of pain research is the brain, and the fact that the brain is neuroplastic, which means it's constantly learning. It can learn. It's a very good learner. That how much it has been involved in learning pain and then responding to our fears about the pain or chronic condition, and then it creates more of it, and then it manifests in our physical body. So people don't really realize that they're in this cycle. They're in a cycle of keeping creating the condition that they absolutely don't want anymore, right? But they're
Mhm.
they're so focused on it and have fear about it. So I think what we're learning and what's really giving a lot of hope is is about the brain and how we can train it differently. And then the nervous system responds differently. And then we get a different output. I think about inputs and
Hmm.
outputs, right? We get a different output by changing the
Hmm.
input.
Hmm. And because you've helped so many people, you have that confidence that
Yeah.
because they're all starting with you from a place of a lot of distress, I presume. That's got to be part and parcel of your work, that they're overwhelmed
And
by chronic pain, right?
well, you know what? If they weren't in distress, they wouldn't have pain.
Hmm.
So, yes, when they come to
Hmm.
me, and a lot of people that come to me have tried a lot of other things. So, I sort
Hmm.
of see it as, I mean, even with functional medicine, a lot of times, we think the root cause is, well, heal the gut and,
Hmm.
heal the gut, do the diet so you're not eating the foods that you're sensitive to and all those things. But they're really one step up
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
real root cause, which is nervous system dysregulation, because the
Yeah.
message is constantly getting to the nervous system that things aren't well. And some of this may have started for most people, what I see, it started probably back in childhood.
Yeah.
None of us have escaped trauma, right?
Hmm.
It could be mild trauma, and it's not really the event, it's how our nervous system responded to it.
Hmm.
It could have been too little for too long, or too much too fast. But
Hmm.
whatever it was, it created this simmering sense of unease within our
Hmm.
nervous system, and we gotten so used to it, a lot of us don't even know. But what
Yeah.
I find interesting is, and actually, this isn't just me saying this. There's now clinical studies using brain retraining that are having amazingly positive results. It's really astounding. And we can do a little practice at the end where I can lead your listeners through a little experience where they can reduce pain in the moment. So we can do that at the
Excellent.
end. We just save about 10 minutes or so for that. So yeah, there's just a lot of promise. And also something that I've learned that's really interesting as well is that so pain is a protection, right? Our body creates pain as a protection. And long before the pain was created or your chronic condition, there were probably behaviors of protection. And so I find this really interesting. I always ask in my webinars, how many people have experienced or have noticed this in themselves: people pleasing, perfectionism, hypervigilance, hyper independence, being overly polite, the inability to set boundaries. All of those are kind of protective personality trait. We think it's our personality, but it's really, Gabor Mate calls them behavioral adaptations. So we created behavioral adaptations probably when we were really little because we couldn't
Hmm.
fight and we couldn't flee. So we
Hmm.
created these sort of like fawning and other protective type of behaviors. So often I see it all the time. People will say, I've got all of those. And I had all of those, right? So I see this over and over again, that we probably started with protective personality, which then led to kind of rigidity in our body, and then nervous system dysregulation. And then the systems that are most affected by that are the digestive system, the immune system, and the hormonal system. So then we see those secondary things that we're
Hmm.
trying to treat, right? The food sensitivities and the gut problems and the skin issues and all those other things. So it's super interesting, but a lot of hope as well, because all we've got to do is change the inputs.
Hmm. Beautiful. As we segue, Jane, let's talk about a couple of things that maybe don't get talked about enough, or maybe let's see what you think about this. I think part of what's happening now in the functional medicine integrative sort of digital ether
Mhm.
is that folks know there are brilliant programs. They know there are thought leaders like you. They're benefiting. What I see a lot is that people appear to be kind of under a spell of my body's a machine. If I go to Mayo Clinic, they'll find the nerves, or they'll run a diagnostic on the computer, or I'll get $30,000 worth of pain relief because I got $30,000 worth of evaluation. But if I do $0 worth of brain retraining, it won't work because the computer and the wires don't work that way. And so let's talk a little bit about just how people step into this space of realizing what you shared at the beginning, which is that things don't work the way Western civilized people presume they work. But also, I think part of pain behavior is anybody that hears that adverse childhood events or trauma
Mhm.
are sort of a seed, like a fractal seed, that ramifies out into the rest of this. Many of them have a protective behavior around leaning into it. And so I think we can take it as a given. We're going to get to hear about brilliant things you do and that help people. And because I've worked with you before, I know they work. And so in some ways in journalism, right, the lead, not bearing the lead is just acknowledging this is a brilliant way to work. People can benefit from you. They can access the tools. But let's just stop for a second and do something maybe that doesn't happen now enough so much on podcasts, which is how do they get through that initial sort of liminal space where they just recoil at the idea of even bringing the monster into the light?
I I think sometimes it's that reminder that, well, there's a few things. We've been conditioned all through our society that we go outside of ourselves to look for help, and that outside of us is the solution. So, part of that's probably one of the biggest hurdles I have is actually helping people understand and believe that they are the solution. But what I've found really helpful, and the other thing is also that one of those behavioral adaptations is the hyper independence, right? Oh, I can do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then not needing help. But the thing is that if the way we think and have thought over our lifetime has created the problems in our body, then we need to change it. And it's really just a habit, like so many of the other
Mm-hmm.
the lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
choices that we talk about in functional medicine, right? The modifiable lifestyle factors,
Mm-hmm.
though they're habits. And so in changing habits, uh, I think that's where a coach can come in, right, to help.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that those reminders all the time. So what I've found really, I've been doing talking about this for a long time, and I've really kind of have found in the last year helping people understand that there's one thing they need to work on, and that is nervous system regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And that the only one that can do that is themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then it's really puts the power back into them, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you can go get a massage and be calm for a little while, but what you do in that half hour, 1 hour, and then if your thoughts are stressful and creating nervous system dysregulation the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
day, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only person that can do that nervous system regulation consistently to finally give the body the message everything's okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that it can heal, because we cannot heal if we're in the
Mm-hmm.
stress state. We just
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, like, kind of I'm always trying to make things as simple as possible. And maybe it's overly simple, but I don't think anyone can go wrong with regulating their nervous system, right?
Well, I've heard that sort of synthesis and analysis is the highest capacity of our intellect, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's super helpful for people because it crystallizes it. They're in a state of
Mm.
stress distress and they need a sort of diagram of what's happening and where to work. I love it that what you're describing is a verb. This is about taking action. This is about agency and locus of control. And also it's um, no, it doesn't feel overly simple. It feels really distilled and really, really powerful. So, yeah, so let's just keep rolling. So, what should folks know?
Well, I think what I hear when I've been, I have a class every month where I
Mm,
invite all kinds, usually hundreds of people are there. And what I'm hearing, people are overwhelmed because we're in the age of information where everything is available. And there's so many people offering different things. And so they're confused and overwhelmed. And so when we can break it down to this one simple thing, calming the nervous system, I say this over and over again to my students, your only job is to be calm as much as you can. That's your only job. That's the only thing you need to do to start with. I mean, of course, there's other things that people can do to support their body, right? Eating real foods. Let's just start with that. And, honoring circadian rhythms, prioritizing sleep, not being around people that stress you out, that kind of stuff. There's all of that as well. But all of that doesn't really matter if your nervous system, if you're not trying to get calm again. So that's really the starting and the foundational point. And of course, there may be other things going on, and then maybe they do need to see an expert, but everything they do with anyone else in terms of, treating things, it's all going to be supported by nervous system regulation. So that calming is so like it's beautifully simple. It's free, right? There's different ways we can do that. Some things, the breath is a great way to do it. So I like teaching breath work. I love visioning exercises. I love teaching people how to get out of their heads and out of the story, right? And get into their body again. So they're so disconnected because the body's always giving information, and they're missing out on it sometimes because they're so like caught up in the stories, and the stories can keep perpetuating the stress. And then of course some of the brain retraining that's really doing well in clinical studies now is teaching the brain, because we're kind of used to noticing pain. And I would say also, because I had autoimmune, also had that. It's like whenever I would think about rheumatoid arthritis and you start doing a little bit of research, it's very scary, right? There's no cure and all that kind of stuff. And so, right, so you think about it and then you have fear about it, which then the body turns on more protection. Things break down more because you're in more stress. So, and with pain, you notice the pain, you have fear about the pain. The brain is just it's wired to pay attention to fear because that usually means survival. And so what we want to do is give the brain the opportunity to notice these things, and it thinks, used to think we're in mortal danger. We want to like consciously say to the brain, sometimes I do this, like talking to the brain, I'm fine. I'm totally safe. In this moment, I got a roof over my head. My heart is beating. I'm totally fine. Yes, pain's there, but I'm fine. And so we can send a message to the brain to say, things are fine. You can, and so then it can begin to let go of pain. So the neural networks in the brain, it's like, kind of think of it like a field with a path through it, right? We've got a really grooved path of like pain, fear. We keep going back and forth over that path. But if we can create a new pathway that's like pain and it's all right, that path will stop getting worn so much and we'll get new pathways made. It's like the neural networks in the brain, right? So there's a lot of promise. Actually, what they're saying now is 85% of chronic pain is actually modulated by the brain and can be turned off using these types of practices, which is astounding, right? 85%. It's really incredible. So yeah, there's just so much hope. And it doesn't mean that the pain isn't real. It doesn't mean that people are making it up, because it's real pain. But the brain has the ability to turn it up or turn it down. And we want to turn it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I flashed on a couple things while you were talking. One phrase that's been kind of emerging in some of my work lately is, we believe the stories told to us by circumstance and then that we tell ourselves. And this narrative we tell ourselves is self-perpetuating. I find people sometimes blame themselves when they realize that they they've got a role. It can be
Yes.
very liberating, but I guess if this were Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, it might be one of those critical junctures where they do or don't proceed.
Mm.
And I have to say, sometimes when folks disappear at that point in trying work with me, and we talk about this possibility that uh, they've got a role in this self-perpetuating narrative.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's it. And I think part of their safety, I should say this has also been part of my own personal growth. So as I say this, I don't feel critical of the folks that stopped at this step. I understand. I can think of dimensions of my own growth that involve this kind of thing where I stopped and then a month later, a year later, or 5 years later, I picked it back up because I was ready. But
Mm.
I think part of our safety and security is this sort of suffering, and uh, then it creates a bunch of reasons to do or not do things, or achieve or not achieve,
Yeah.
or try getting unwedded from medications, or what have you. So it seems like part of the it's free dollars wise, but it's not free in terms of emotional risk. It's not free in terms of that verb agency commitment to the practices and going ahead and taking action. So yeah, what do you think about that, about people's identity itself being challenged by the degree to which they've identified with their pain?
Mm. Well, there's probably a lot of subconscious things going on there
Mm-hmm.
that, they're not even really aware of, because a lot of people will get attention,
Mm-hmm.
for being pain. People start to care about them, and that feels really good, right? Um, or, or maybe they're off work and they kind of like that. And so what's the motivation to get well again? So there's a lot of, I would say, subconscious things going on there. And to come back to your point about, well, now once I realize, okay, it's me, my thoughts that have created this, it feels like too much of a responsibility. But I actually had a session with a client yesterday, and a lot of things going on, excuse me, with her. And I we reframed it. So I'm offering this little reframe. The fact that you have this pain or these symptoms is evidence of how powerful you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's evidence of how powerful your mind is. So to try
Mm-hmm.
to turn it around as seeing it as instead of being something awful, like it's evidence of of how powerful I am. And if I created this, I can create something else. And I realize not everyone's ready for that, because it's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different narrative than we've heard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's supported really by ancient spiritual wisdom. It's supported by new science in the field of quantum physics, that we are the creators, but also physiologically, we are the creators through our thoughts and our nervous system and the state of that, of this physical body. So um, it is a big, it's a big role to take on, and maybe not people aren't ready for that. And so I'm really not here for the people that aren't ready for that, but if they
Mm-hmm.
are ready for it, I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I was some of the work of Sachin Patel, who helps functional medicine business people out of Canada. I love the name of his clinic, the Living Proof. And
Yeah.
he says something about how to communicate. He says polarize your audience, which I had never heard before. But he's sort of I think recommending a type of courage in the messaging, saying go
Hmm.
ahead and be overt about who you are and how you work, and that it's okay to be ready or not be ready. I think it helps people's confidence just knowing that you've helped people before, and when they're ready, they can just go ahead and start getting better. It's very
Hmm.
unapologetic, right? In what I would describe as a good way. Just, okay, let's do this. This isn't sort of
Yeah.
conjectural. This is a verb. Let's get going. Let's get you well.
Yeah. And it's so achievable.
Hmm.
It's so
Hmm.
achievable with consistent practice. And I see it over and over again. So
Hmm.
um but you know what? I see some people as well that think, okay, I'm gonna come into this program, and it's going to magically happen for me because I joined the program. And it's not
Mhm.
like that. I have the tools and I have the
Mhm.
coaching, but the person
Mhm.
that's got to do the work is
Mhm.
is you, right? So,
Mhm.
and it's not work. It's the way I describe it is it's a new way of being rather than a whole lot of doing. So it
Mhm.
starts with awareness because you have to be aware of what am I thinking. And lots of times in my coaching, it's like I'm a mirror back to, reflecting back to them the words they're using, even because our
Yeah.
words are so powerful. Like
Yeah.
if they own it, like say my pain, like I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, do you want to own the pain? I don't think you want
Mhm.
to own the pain. So,
Mhm.
changing your words and thoughts around, and then
Mhm.
uh, doing some reprogramming in the subconscious mind, because it's had a lot of years of getting a certain program, but it learns through repetition. So we can use repetition. There's other tools as well. Um, but there's so much we can do just by
Mhm.
repeating patterns. I mean, that's how we learn a lot of things, right? You want to learn how to drive a car, you go to driver's school, you practice, practice, practice. And after, there's a lot to think about in the beginning. And then now you drive from point A to point B and hardly even remember the drive because it's so automatic because it learned through repetition. So our brain can learn, it can learn new
Mhm.
things.
I find that people continue, they realize it's going to be incremental healing. They just get some sort of intuitive or body intelligence type experience in the early going. They sense that there's a path forward. I think a fatalism they have that they're stuck is what softens, seems to be what keeps them going because they are having a lot of perceived suffering, a lot of overwhelm. But I
Hmm.
just get the sense being in proximity to those branch points early in cases, they're just saying, oh, on some level, I'm not sure I would articulate it this way. I think I just witnessed it. They're they're realizing this is a place they can work down at that root level and start to move forward. And it's even kind of a relief to them. It's sort of common sense. I mean, if they wanted to become a better tennis player or learn tennis or get ready for a 100-mile road ride or something like that, that
Hmm.
first little flush of victory is just how to clip into the pedals and ride 2 miles and have proper balance on the bicycle or stretching or something like that. Just that early journey type, oh gosh, all right, wow, I'm going to take this journey, but it feels good to be on the real journey rather than in some side eddy of stuckness and fatalism.
So true. So true. Hmm.
So what would we'll save some room for this session that you're going to take us through. So what would people anticipate about what it feels like day to day to work with you and do your work? Is it portions of the day that are devoted, or is it more building practices that they're doing continuously in real time as they're retraining? How does that
Yeah.
manifest?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the same for it's not like everyone
Hmm.
comes in and it's exactly the same because people are different.
Hmm.
Everyone's different.
Hmm.
I usually start off with a one-on-one session with everybody, even though I only have a group program.
Hmm.
But I like that first session to really understand them and kind of hone in on like what their thinking patterns are and what might be a really good start for them. But like generally for everyone, I like to start with a vision, and we'll kind of do that with in the exercise today. Visioning themselves well, and and then feeling what that feels like, because from athletes, they've been doing that for years, right? Visualizing. And so, first of all, it feels good because they're enjoying whatever they're visualizing. So, right away, you get calming the nervous system. It also gets the brain, on board for creating that because it will, with the reticular activating system, they call it, it will start paying attention and help, bringing and helping you do the whatever would support making that happen. So I love the visualization, which is a great starting point. Breath work is another one. I have a what I call my flare care toolbox, where I've got a bunch of tools that in the beginning, here are the tools. If you're having a pain kind of day where it's really high, these are the tools that you use.
Mm.
If you're having a day when you're feeling emotionally frustrated, these are the tools to use.
Mm-hmm.
If you are just sort of want to practice being calm, creating what I call the little pearls in your day, the pearls of calm, then there's other tools to use. So in the beginning, they may be kind of coming back to those. And then depending on where they are, they may use one tool over and over again for a while and then go on to another one. If there's some like resentment and anger lingering over past events, I've got tools for that as well, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
need to release those emotions. So there's these tools. And I really love morning routines. So I have like I have a 6-step path, so you come in right here and here's the 5 like action things that you're working on. But pretty early on, I really get them to establish a morning routine that has at least some I call it the 3 M's, a 3M morning. So mindfulness, so that's where you're paying attention to the breathing just in the moment. It could be meditation, but a lot of people get scared off by meditation. So it just could be mindful breathing. So
Mm-hmm.
some mindful breathing, some movement, whatever that is for you, and then some mindset work. So that could be journaling, it could be affirmations, it could be positive self-talk. So any these kinds of could be, a guided meditation. So getting their mind sort of prepared for the day. And I say make that as long or as short as you want. It could be 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 5, 5, 5, 20, 20, 20, right? Whatever
Mm-hmm.
fits into your schedule. But the morning is so important to how it affects the rest of our day. It
Mm-hmm.
affects our sleep at night. So establishing, and also it's like it's a win, right? You do it first thing in the morning, it's already a win. And I do have like a platform for celebrating your wins. And all of my group coaching, we start off with celebrating the wins, because it's, then our brain is recognized, okay, this is working. Things are happening. I'm doing this stuff and I'm seeing progress. And so I just focus on progress, even if it's small, like baby steps. But the morning and doing your morning thing first thing for the day, then you've already got a win and you're getting your mind set up for the day. So that's kind of some of my
Mm.
go-to things.
No, I just feel so lit up hearing all of that. There's so much about it that's so valuable. The tools, the different toolboxes for different states of distress,
Mhm.
so that folks, their reaction to that state can be to go to the toolbox and do something. That's got to be both a relief to people, but also just so powerfully important in the early going, and then the sustainability. They can keep using those tools. So many traditions, so many spiritual and health traditions include practice in the morning. Makes a ton of
There's a
sense.
ton of science behind it too. There's just
Yeah,
kind of no argument
yeah,
that it's helpful.
yeah, yeah. I start the day meditating with my wife, and uh, she, um, she and I have been doing a lot of yoga and meditation for many years, and she talked about, okay, what's the time of the day we're going to devote to this? And then that was fascinating too, in terms of then restructuring when I go to bed to get enough sleep, coming to terms with my circadian rhythms, meaning if I get up at 5:30 to meditate with her at 6:30 so I can be to work by 8, that means that's kind of how I roll on the weekends too, based on other
Yeah.
thought leaders I talk to, that our adrenals and our circadian rhythms are going to want to be in a state of safety and predictability, and that
Yeah.
that's okay. I can, it was a surprise to be at a point in my life of realizing, oh yeah, that can be my weekend too. The people I hang with don't care if we get together and have dinner and play board games at 5 on a Saturday or at 8. Um,
I don't like late nights anymore.
so it's just so interesting how when we take action, then there's almost this beautiful morphing of things in response. And I had certainly had made assumptions. Oh, I won't be up that early, or I won't be up that early on weekends, or I won't be doing that every day before my work. And now I can't imagine not. It's just such a great part
My
of the day.
my husband and I start off the day with meditation as well, and then yoga, and
Mhm.
and it's it's such a beautiful thing for our relationship as well to
Hmm.
have that time of day. And we also, when we finish, we do this gratitude thing. So
Hmm.
starting off the day with gratitude is always
Hmm.
so beautiful. You know
Mm.
what, I usually start off and I'll kind of do a lot of the talking. I say, I'm so grateful for this day. My husband will always say, best day ever coming up.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Best day ever coming up. I mean, it just sets you up for this beautiful
Yeah.
excitement for the day. Like, oh, wow, there's
Hmm.
something great is going to happen.
Mm.
You know, whatever it is. Again, and then at the end of the day, I love doing the gratitude. I have this little
Hmm.
rock that I'll pick up in my hand. Like, what's the
Hmm.
best thing that happened today? So you're kind of going through all the good things that happened during the day then at
Mm.
the end of the day. And that helps set you up for better sleep as well, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. But we've been doing lately for meditation, what we've been doing, well, from I would call it mindfulness. I've got a full set of crystal singing bowls. And so I play the bowls and we chant. But it
Mm.
feels so good to get the
Yeah.
because we are vibrational beings, right? And
Yeah.
we respond to vibrations. And so it just feels so good. And the cat comes up and wanders around. The cat likes it too. So it's just a beautiful way to start the day. And there's something really special about this time of year and the dark mornings. Do you
Mhm.
find that?
Yeah. Yeah. I've fallen in love with winter. I feel like that's been a mark of healing is to love each season and
Hmm.
find the beauty in the shorter days of the year and the cold and
Yeah. Yeah. The seasons are beautiful. Yeah.
well, let's make sure and have enough time to do this practice with you.
Okay. All right. Well, what so your audience isn't a pain audience. Usually I have a pain audience, but I'm assuming that the people that are listening probably have some health thing they're concerned about. So
Mhm.
let's kind of focus on that or if you've had like a stressful event, you could focus on just think about that for a moment. So we're only going to think about the pain or the health condition or the stressful event for a moment to to give a rating out of 10. So if it's pain, you know, you would like 0 would be no pain, 10 would be the worst pain you could imagine. Where on that scale is your pain right now? And this could be for the stress or the emotional stress you have around the illness or maybe the illness condition. So whatever it is, I'll try, you know, trying to keep it general. Let's rate it out of 10 where you are right now. So have you got something, Rob?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So what is it out of 10? You don't need to talk about it, but what's the number out of 10 right now?
5.
5. Okay. All right. So let's get relaxed. We're just going to put that aside right now and just get really nice and relaxed. And you can close your eyes, or if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just have a downward cast. But it's probably better to close your eyes because it's easier to visualize with that. So we're just going to get relaxed here now, sitting or lying down wherever you are. And just begin by noticing the support that's beneath you. So if you're sitting on a chair, notice where you're touching the chair. Or if you're lying down, notice the surface beneath you, where it's touching, supporting you, always supporting you. And then wherever your hands are, notice what your hands are being supported on. Just let yourself sink into that support. And then notice the breath. You don't even need to change it, just notice it. Notice the cool air on the inhale. And maybe notice it's a little bit warmer on the exhale. Maybe you notice the sound of your breathing. Or maybe you notice some movement in your body. And notice that there's always a breath there. You're supported by your lungs, the air around you, always there, always supported. And now I'd like for you to bring to mind this situation, but being resolved. If this situation was resolved, let's take yourself to a place of that now. So maybe you're doing something that you can't do now. Maybe you're with people that you haven't been with. Whatever it is, take yourself there now. Doing the thing you want to do, feeling the way you want to feel in this situation. And notice where you are. Notice if you're inside or outdoors. Notice what's around you. Look at the colors. Look at the objects, or maybe it's nature. Maybe you're looking at trees or water or clouds, whatever it is, wherever you are, notice what you're seeing. Notice what your feet are on. Notice what's touching your skin. Maybe you notice your clothing, or maybe you notice a breeze, or maybe you're touching somebody else, or it could be a pet even. Notice what's touching your skin. Notice if there's any sensation of warmth or coolness. And notice the sounds you're hearing. Maybe you hear sounds of nature. Maybe you hear people talking. Maybe it's music. What is it? What sounds are there? Or maybe it's silence. There's nothing wrong. It's all good. Now find the word for the emotion that you're feeling right now. So maybe you're feeling love or joy or contentment or peace or exhilaration or some other word, whatever it is. Find the word for the emotion that you're feeling right now. And then notice where you're feeling that emotion in your body. So come down below your head and notice. You might feel something in your neck or shoulders, or in your chest or heart area, or lower down in the upper abdomen, or further down in the lower abdomen. Wherever it is, it might be tiny or it might be large. It might feel like tightness. It might feel like expansion. It might feel warm. Whatever it is, tune into that area. And now imagine as you inhale that you're breathing into that spot, right where you're feeling that emotion. And with every inhale, you're making this feeling bigger. So inhaling, and it gets bigger. Inhale again, and it gets bigger again. And it keeps getting bigger with every inhale. It gets so big, it could be filling out your body. It can get so big, it's expanding outside your physical body. Just use your imagination, let it get so big, it's filling up the room that you're in right now. And then pull it all back. Imagine pulling this feeling back to where you first felt it, tucking it in like a point, a pinpoint of light. Or it could just be a point. This feeling is always there. And anytime you want to, you can breathe into it again, make it bigger. Feel it in your body again, make it as big as you want, and then you can tuck it back in again. This feeling is always there for you. Whenever you want it, you can make it as big as you want it. And you can practice teaching your body what this feeling feels like so you can come back to it anytime in an instant. You can create this feeling. So tuck it away again now. And then bring your attention back to your breath. Bring it back to the surface that you're sitting or lying on. Maybe you wiggle your fingers and toes just a little bit to come back to this space and this time. And one more deep breath in and exhale. And then when you're ready, you can slowly and gently, first with the downward cast, and then gently opening your eyelids and coming back. All right. So now, Rob, and everyone that's listening, go back to that thought that we had before we started and the pain or the agitation or the stress that you were feeling, and give that a rating again now out of 10. See where you
2.
are. 2. I mean, isn't that fabulous?
Mm-hmm.
You went from a 5 to a 2 in just a few minutes, just with your thoughts.
Awesome.
And I see it over and over again with people with pain. And so hopefully some of your audience has had that experience now, where maybe you had a 6 out of 10 for pain and now it's down to a 4 or a 2. I had someone on my last webinar. She had sciatica pain for years and it was totally gone after we did this exercise. So what I like for people to get from this is that this is the power that you have. Imagine if you consistently practice this.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Right? If you consistently practice this, you're creating those pearls of calm nervous system. The body can calm down and begin healing. So I love to give people this powerful experience.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you?
Well, thank you for asking. I have my website is called thewellnessengineer.com. And so people can find me there. On social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I'm at Jane Hogan Health. And I have a podcast called Wellness by Design. And I talk about this stuff all the time. It's my mission and purpose. I get so much joy from it. It's really what my life is about now, and empowering people, really empowering people.
Thanks again so much. To invoke a close that Dr. Keisha Ewers uses, thank you for sharing a fraction of your wisdom. And from me, thank you so much for all the light you bring.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to you too. And I love Dr. Keisha as well. Thank you for having this platform and for all the wonderful work that you do, Dr. Rob.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thanks for your kind words. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us for the Seaworthy podcast. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. If you think we've earned it, please consider giving this podcast a like, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. Thanks.